One of the big changes we've made to EIB Financial Analytics 218 is the way we can control the whole budgeting and forecasting process. And what we're going to do in this demo is to take you through the entire process, I guess, from generating a new forecast to amending that forecast, and then ultimately seeing the results of that forecast near real time using the Power BI link that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all show how would we generate a new version of the forecast. And when I say a new version, I mean so that when we look in a report and we compare, say, actual to budget, do we have another version in there, like actual to budget to forecast revised version 1, forecast revised version 2. And the whole idea of this is that you can literally contrast not just actual to budget to one forecast, but you could, for example, if you did a forecast after 3 months and then did a new version after 4 months, you should be able to contrast the two forecasts there against the actuals and the budgets and see literally how good are you at forecasts. If you take 1 month in time, how much has the year-end outturn changed as a result of updating the forecast. So typically if we're in month 5, we might want to introduce a new version of the forecast that has perhaps 5 months of actuals as the default and then 7 months of budgets, and then we want our users to either interactively key in changes to the budgets to make those 7 months the actual forecast going forward, and then we want to contrast the forecast in reports and or Power BI dashboards to see the effect of that forecast. So if I go across into Excel and I go across to the EIB Finance ribbon here, I'm going to log into one of our databases. So I'm going to go into the budget database here. So this is just the name of your finance application. And one of the things we have available in 218 under the budget and forecast ribbon now is the ability to create a new version of the budget. And I can call that, say, new forecast. So this is what it's going to actually appear like in the cube. So in other words, if I pick up the dimension name here, the version here, then it will show me actual budget. In this case, if I add this forecast, then I'll also see the words new forecast in there as a version of the forecast for me to pick. Now what I'm going to do is I can apply this to a particular year. So in this case I'm going to put this to the 2010 year, and what I'm going to say is I want to make this forecast called new forecast, and I want it to be 5 months worth of actuals and 7 months worth of budget. So I'm going to leave period 1 to 5 as actuals, that's fine, but period 6 I'm going to change to Sage System Budget. Now I can go down and change each one of those individually to Sage System Budget, but I can also right click and say copy to subsequent versions, and very quickly now I've created a new version of the forecast in the cube called new forecast, and it will have 5 months of actuals and 7 months of budgets. And if I click on create, that will now create that in the cube. Next time I process the cube, I will have that new version in there. And of course, well, now what do we do with that forecast? How do we update it? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a before and after effect here. So I'm going to actually, let me just go across to Power BI here. So here, if you have a look at this, you can see I have a current position of where I'm plotting my actual to my Sage System Budget. So that actuals and Sage System Budget have come out of Sage, in this case Sage 200, and you can see here that I've got a forecast new. This was one I created in the same way as I did just now, and you can see here that I've got, if I go over to a particular month, I can see that I've got an actuals of 2.5 million, my forecast new is 1.486 million, and my Sage System Budget was 1.55. Okay, so if I now just flip across to one of our menus here, I've created a forecast. How do I enter data into it? So if I click on the Sage 200 data entry by period report, you're going to see that this fires up a standard EIB report. So there's nothing unusual about this report, except for in EIB Analytics 2.18 we can write enable this report for data entry, and that's exactly what we've done here. So if I drill down on UK sales here, I could go across to London now, and I could actually key something in April, and I'm going to key something ridiculous in there. Let me key in 5 million, and when I click on that, it's now going to say, hold on, you're just entering values into a report. Are you sure you want to do that? So in other words, do you want to activate data entry? And when I say yes, this will update the report. Or in fact it won't in this case, because it's applying some validation I applied here that says if I've got cost centers set to all in my criteria, I'm not allowed to post data. And you can put in lots of validation into what you allow the user to actually change here. So I'm going to do that again, but this time I am going to change the criteria from all to London. And now if I go over to April and type in 5 million, you should see now that that will now update the report. So that 5 million now has rippled through my sales default, has rippled through my UK sales, has rippled through my sales total. Now if we look at those cells in Excel, for those of you interested in the technology, if I just say view formula bar here, you can see that these are not Excel calculations. You can see that I've actually, by updating London, I've rippled right the way through here. But if I look at that number in sales, as far as Excel is concerned, it is just the number 5 million. So what we're actually doing here is we're using the relationships as defined in the cube to do this aggregation, because clearly if you change your chart of accounts, we could never have all these formula in there keeping them updated and being self-maintained. That would never work. Now at the moment I haven't written this data back to the cube, but I can use it for what-ifing, because this is truly multidimensional what I'm doing here, because I've just updated the cost center London. But if I double click on London now and go back to all cost centers, the report will refresh, but now you're seeing the full effect of the 5 million that I've added in to London in April. And that 5 million has rippled through into the total of 5.6 million. So at the moment I'm only doing this in memory. If I come out of the report and not save the changes, then none of this will have happened. I've seen what sort of effect I would have on my numbers. I can now decide, okay, not really interested in pursuing this at the moment. I'll come out of the workbook, trash the forecast, and I'll be back to the cube in terms of how it was. But what I'm going to do here, I am going to save the changes away. So if I go to the EIB cube ribbon here now, you'll see that I have the option under data entry to apply changes, and when I save and apply changes, that will now write that 5 million back to a write back table, and that now has effectively updated the cube. When I next process the cube, it will do a full job of that, but for all intensive purposes that has updated the cube. Now if you have any doubts about that, then I guess there are two things we can do here. First of all, I can shut this report and open it again. So now if it's opening it from fresh, it's going to open the values from the cube, it's going to connect to the report and then draw the report from the values it finds in the cube. And you can see here that it's found 5.6 million now, because if I drill down into UK sales now, you should see an item there of 5 million for London. But what I find really exciting here is if I go back to the web, remember I was on the Power BI report here, you can see that that is how we left the report. So we left the report with the forecast new having a total value of 1.486 in April. If I now refresh the report here, look at what happens. Now suddenly you can see that peak in April, because our forecast now has actually changed. And you can see how that's been updated. In fact, I updated the wrong forecast. I updated the system budget there. But you get the idea. You can see now how that has changed to 6.1 million. So using the combination of generating a new forecast, using that functionality, and also now using direct data entry, another feature of EIB Analytics 2.18, we can provide forecasting changes almost in real time, and we can provide multiple forecasts that you can contrast actual versus budget versus forecast 1 versus forecast 2 versus forecast 3. So pretty limitless really in what you do going forward.